The Torah tells us when Yaakov Avinu left for Haran, it says he left Beersheba. Okay, we know where he was. Why do you gotta tell us he left Beersheba? Rashi tells us that the Torah is teaching us a big lesson. When the tzaddik is in the city, it has majesty, it has radiance, it has splendor. When he leaves the city, then the majesty, the radiance, and the splendor leaves the city as well. That's what it means. Yaakov Avinu left Beersheba. He left Beersheba and the city was different. It felt the difference that tzaddik wasn't in the city. So therefore, simply by being there, by Yaakov Avinu being in the city, it influences the environment. He doesn't have to give big speeches, even if he stays in his room and learns Torah. The community will be spiritually infused with all the kedusha that the tzaddik leaves around him. But when he got married and raised a family, eventually left, so then what? They felt it. Okay, so that time, what happens when he went to Egypt? His son Yosef was viceroy of Egypt, and his oldest son Menashe assisted his father Yosef, the second in command, for all his issues. And his younger son Ephraim, he made him learn Torah all day. For 17 years, Ephraim learned with who? He learned Torah with Yaakov. When Yaakov Avinu became sick, Yosef brought Ephraim and Menashe to go get a bracha. And what did he do? He gave the first bracha, he gave the kavod to the younger brother over the older brother. Yaakov Avinu said, why? Because Ephraim will become greater. Who ended up coming from Ephraim? Yoshua bin Nun. Yoshua bin Nun was from Shevet Ephraim. So Ephraim's toiling ended up producing a person like Yoshua. So therefore, when a father studies, it has impact on his descendants, on his children. Of Dessler explained there's a concept of not just physical inheritance, there's spiritual inheritance. A person works on himself, and then he has children. His kids automatically have these natural attributes, these affinities, these powers that, he's better than other people in certain things. Why? Because his father worked on it and he gave it an inheritance to his son, spiritual inheritance. So therefore you see that tzaddik, how much of an influence he has, even if he's not doing anything. Just the fact that he's learning Torah, working on himself, he already made the city better, he already made his children that much better from the fact that he studied Torah and was a tzaddik. Now what? The Gemara tells us also, the Midrash tells us also, the Parshat Vayehi is a Parshat Stuma. Why is it Parshat Stuma? It's a closed parasha. There's no space in the Torah between the paragraph before and after. It's because it shows that when Yaakov Avinu passed away, that parasha, it shows that when Yaakov Avinu passed away, the eyes and the heart of the Jewish people started closing because of the enslavement. Meaning, as long as Yaakov Avinu was alive, so then what? We understood what we need to do, and we know how to not fall into exile, and, like a family. It has Bobo. As long as Bobo around, he keeps everybody in check. He keeps everybody, tells them, listen to me, be careful, don't do this, don't do that, listen to me, I've been there, don't worry, let them do. He puts everybody in line. When Bobo passes away, then everybody starts with opinions, and this one's like that, this one's like that. So therefore, Yaakov Avinu also, when he passed away, so what? The eyes and the heart, which is the wisdom and the foresight of the Jewish people, started to diminish. They didn't have someone with experience and the spirituality and the knowledge that Yaakov Avinu had. So you see the power of having Adam Gadol, having a great person, or a holy person, Sadiq, around. It changes the whole dynamic of society, the whole dynamic of your family. So therefore, that's why a person has to be stick to and always have around him Sadiqim, to him, his wife, his kids. His whole family should be connected to them and get that from that spirituality that he has to offer. It says that when Moshe Rabbeinu redeemed the Jewish people and he got the Torah, it says his face was like the sun. It shined a brilliant light. And what? We know that he was the highest level of prophet that there was. And it says after he died, that the Jews came down, right? They came down and they messed up a little bit. And it says Yeshua's face was like the moon. Moshe was like the sun, but Yeshua's face was like the moon. It means that it reflects the sun's light, right? The moon, but it doesn't have its own light. And even though Yeshua was chosen as the next leader, still the void was not fully filled. So you see that Hashem has each generation the Gdolim that they're supposed to have. They're not always going to be the highest level, but you're always going to have a leader. And a person has to know that the Moshe received the Torah from Sinai, he passed it to Yeshua, he passed it to the elders, the prophets. As the sages tell us, Iftach bedoro, Shmuel bedoro. Every sage in his generation, he is like the Moses, right? In Moshe Rabbeinu, everybody was greater, right? So therefore there was a rift between them and Moses. But they respected Moses. Moses was their leader. And the next generation, the people went down. So too, the leader was a little bit lower, was Yoshua. But nonetheless, there was a rift between them and Yoshua. There was a space. They're Gadol. Every generation, the generation goes down. The leaders also go down, but there's the same space. And just like they have to respect Moshe, you have to respect the sage you have in your generation. You should look at him like Moses. You should look at him like Shmuel. You should look at him ki Yiftach. Every single person, Hashem planned already in advance. Who's going to be the leader? Who's going to be the Gedolim in that generation? And if Hashem put Moshe there, and he put this person in this generation, you should treat them the same. You should look at them with the same awe. You should treat them with the same respect. You should realize how much life force and how much success comes from attaching yourself to these people. So therefore, a person has to know in his life, if they want, you would say, if I had Moshe Rabbeinu, I would stick to him. I would never argue with him. I would just be close to him and help him and try to get as much as I can from him. The person has to know, your Gadol in your generation, you should do the same. It should not be any different. Hashem planned this tzaddik also to be in your generation, and you should meet him, and you should bump into him, and you should deal with him, and you should learn with him for a reason. All this for a reason. And you shouldn't mizalzel. You shouldn't be disparage him. You don't think Moshe Rabbeinu, the people disparaged him also? They talked about, oh, he became a little bit chubby. That means he's taking our money and he's eating good. He has a good life. He's becoming wealthy off of us, right? He goes and he saw how he was trying to make leave shul. He came to shul late. He was at problems with his wife. He was at home. He had issues. He got stuck there. Or he left his house early. Oh, they had shalom bayit. That's why he ran away from his house. And then I would all say all this shtur about Moshe Rabbeinu. You would think, how can you talk about Moshe Rabbeinu? When they were next to him, they also thought, it's just Moshe Rabbeinu. What's the big deal? So what? He's a rabbi. God forbid, a person has to know. The Yiftach Gedoro, Shmuel Bedoro. Just like they had the test with him in his generation, we have the same test with our rabbis. But they didn't realize he's Moshe Rabbeinu. You didn't realize this person in front of you, how big of a Gadol he is for your generation. They said they will judge you according to who? Hashem doesn't judge us according to the previous generation. He judges us according to who is the sages in your generation. They look, you could have been like him and you didn't. Why? And you can't tell me, but Moshe was in the desert, there was nothing there, there was no Yetzirah. Look at this Gadol. He was in your generation with all Yetzirah. He still became the way he became. So therefore, a person has to know the way you connect and are stuck to the Gdolim, the big sages. This is the more spirituality you bring. The farther you distance, Chas v'Shalom, you don't want to reach the same point like they did to Moshe Rabbeinu. Baruch Adonai Olam.